With the 2021 NFL Draft right around the corner, I wanted to go back and revisit the draft classes over the years. The decade of the 2000s seems so ancient and far away now that it's 2021. I remember playing my first ever Madden game on GameCube and then deciding to play football for the first time in 2007. So now I'm going to go through and rank the number one overall picks from the 2000s based on how their overall careers turned out. Before I start the ranking, here are some interesting facts about the number one overall draft picks. The most popular position taken number one overall was the quarterback position, not surprising at all. A total of 7 quarterbacks were taken number one overall in the 2000s. The other 3 players were 2 defensive ends and 1 offensive tackle. There was only one team that had the number one overall pick twice, the Houston Texans in 2002, which was their expansion year, and 2006. Every other team had the number one overall pick just once. The colleges that produced number one overall picks this decade were UGA, Michigan, LSU, North Carolina State, Utah, Mississippi, USC, Fresno State, Virginia Tech, and Penn State. And the average career for the number one overall pick in the 2000s is almost 11 seasons. And finally, there are 2 players that are still playing today. The worst number one overall pick was easily quarterback Jamarcus Russell. Jamarcus Russell would go first overall to the then Oakland Raiders in the 2007 draft out of LSU. In college, Russell played 3 years where he would really put the country on notice in 2006 while throwing for 3,100 yards and 21 touchdowns with a completion percentage of 67.8 and leading LSU to an 11-2 record. After seeing the numbers of success, what really reeled NFL teams in though was his arm strength and size that easily translated to the next level while also making him a can't-miss prospect. And with Raiders owner Al Davis being easily hypnotized by the athleticism part of players during this time, the Raiders just couldn't help themselves but to take him at number 1. But the organization in Oakland quickly learned, like many of us have learned before, that talent only goes so far, and hard work and work ethic is what really needed to succeed, and unfortunately for the Raiders, Jamarcus Russell had none of that. Just to show you just how bad of a player that Russell was, I think it's important to note that as a starting quarterback, his record was 7-18 through 25 games, where he never had a completion percentage above 55%, nor having more than 13 touchdowns in a single season. And after coming into camp weighing almost 300 pounds, being overweight at quarterback, the Raiders would release him and his NFL career would pretty much be over. Number 9 would be Courtney Brown. Courtney Brown would go number 1 overall in the 2000 draft by the Cleveland Browns out of Penn State. At Penn State, he was first team All-Big Ten, Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, and a consensus first team All-American. He finished his college career with 33 sacks and 70 tackles for loss. And being almost 6'5", 270, and running a 4.5 40, the Browns just couldn't resist him. Starting off as a rookie, his year was actually quite productive, with 69 tackles, 16 TFLs, 4.5 sacks, and 8 pass deflections. His rookie season would be the only time in his career where he played all 16 games. The following year would be riddled with injuries, and he'd only play 5 games. Despite being a part of one of the 2 Browns teams to actually make the playoffs, in the last 20 years, Courtney Brown would only play a total of 26 games from 2002 to 2004 and only have 8 sacks in that span. Brown would then go to the Denver Broncos, where he played 14 games as Denver would go 13-3 and beat the defending Super Bowl champion New England Patriots in a playoff game. After the 2005 season, his career would be over. Number 8 will be quarterback David Carr, brother of Derek Carr. David Carr would go first overall in the 2002 draft as the very first draft pick in Houston Texans history. Carr would start at Fresno State for 2 seasons, where he threw for just under 8,000 yards, 65 touchdowns, and be a finalist for the Heisman Trophy in 2001. Unfortunately for him, however, his world would be rocked in Houston, literally. The Texans all around failed to help and protect Carr. He never really recovered from it. He was sacked a record 76 times in his rookie season. In the 5 years he was in Houston, Carr was sacked a total of 249 times, an average of almost 50 times a season. However, at one point, he did lead the league in completion percentage with almost 70%. After a disappointing stint, Carr will be released and bounce around from team to team, going to the Carolina Panthers, the New York Giants, San Francisco 49ers, and back to the Giants, where he'd win the Super Bowl, beating the Patriots as a backup. With the start on an expansion team, it would lead him to a very disappointing career. I think Alex Smith would do right at number 7. Looking back in hindsight, most would agree that Aaron Rodgers would have gone number 1 in the 2005 draft, but Smith wouldn't have been that far behind. His college career at Utah included being a Mountain West Offensive Player of the Year, a first-team All-American, and multiple bowl game wins over Southern Miss and Pittsburgh. His career could best be described as a quarterback who plays it safe and is a game manager to many. 14 years and not even 200 passing touchdowns in today's game. Smith would indeed have a great 2012 season with the 49ers before getting hurt and having Colin Kaepernick take his place to lead San Francisco to the Super Bowl. His best years, however, would be with the Kansas City Chiefs before the arrival of Patrick Mahomes, where he'd have 3 Pro Bowl selections, lead the Chiefs to the playoffs 4 times, and also have the highest passer rating in the NFL in 2017 with 104.7. He had the Redskins in position for the playoffs before suffering such a gruesome injury in 2018. So sad to see after having the best year of his career. Being able to see him come back and play in 2020 was very special to see, which would allow him to win Comeback Player of the Year. Michael Vick would be number 6. Vick, coming out of Virginia Tech in 2001, had loads of potential with the ability to be a future Hall of Fame quarterback. His dual threat ability, along with having a cannon for an arm, helped him win Big East Offensive Player of the Year and be a Heisman finalist as well. We're talking about a quarterback that was said to run a 4.25 coming out of college, which was unheard of in 2001. Vick will be starting full-time by 2002, playing in 15 games while throwing for 2,900 yards, 16 touchdowns, and also having almost 800 yards rushing. This would earn him his first of 4 Pro Bowls in his career. By 2006, Vick would lead the Falcons to 2 playoff appearances while having a 9-year, $130 million extension. He'd become the first quarterback to rush for over 1,000 yards in NFL history, and then everything started to crumble downhill. A 2-year prison sentence and NFL suspension hurt his career trajectory by a large margin. With Atlanta now having Matt Ryan, Vick would look to Philadelphia to revive his career, in which he did. Vick would win Comeback Player of the Year in 2010 while throwing for over 3,000 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 9 touchdowns rushing. He followed it up with another good year, but injuries would really start to get to him later as he would get older and move to the Jets and Steelers. Carson Palmer is good at number 5, and like Vick, I believe he could have been much better at quarterback. Palmer shattered records in college by becoming the career leader for passes, completions, and attempts for USC in the Pac-10. He would also win the Heisman in 2002. Despite coming into the NFL as a 25-year-old rookie, Palmer would have the Bengals in the playoffs in no time, but unfortunately, a hit in the playoffs versus the Steelers will be the first of many that would make Palmer injury-prone. And as the injuries started to get more worse, so was the relationship between Palmer and the Bengals organization, despite being a 2-time Pro Bowler and leading them to the playoffs twice. After a 4-12 season in 2010, along with his best years in Cincinnati behind him, Palmer would essentially give up on the team before being traded to the Oakland Raiders mid-season the following year. A terrible stint will cause him to be traded once again to the Arizona Cardinals, where he'd officially turn his career around. Palmer in 2015 led Arizona to a 13-3 record while throwing for 4,600 yards, 35 touchdowns, and even beat his former team, the Bengals. With 3 Pro Bowls and a second-team All-Pro, while being top 15 in passing yards and touchdowns, I could only wonder how much better these numbers would have been had he not had such devastating injuries in his career. At number 4, even though I almost expect this to change soon, is Matthew Stafford. The Lions have been known to waste historically great talents, and have almost done it with Stafford. Before he even played it down at UGA, analyst Milk Hyper expected him to be a number 1 overall pick. Winning multiple bowl games along with being an All-American in 2008 will allow that prediction to come to life. You could really say that outside of Calvin Johnson's great success, Matthew Stafford has been the main factor when it comes to keeping the Detroit Lions from irrelevant. Despite having a negative win-loss record, he has in fact led Detroit to 4 winning seasons while making the playoffs 3 times. Stafford was just the 4th quarterback in NFL history to throw for over 5,000 yards in a season while also being the fastest player to reach 45,000 yards passing, which was done in 165 games. With all this to account for, he's only been able to make the Pro Bowl just once in his career. No All-Pro seasons at all. Yes, he did in fact throw for 5,000 yards and 41 touchdowns, but yet only got Comeback Player of the Year and not an actual Pro Bowl selection. While being 33 years old, which still gives him quite a bit of time left in the NFL at quarterback, I really hope he does great things with the Rams that could make him even greater than what he's already done. Number 3 would be offensive tackle Jake Long out of Michigan. Long would be All Big Ten, a 2-time All-American, as well as winning Big Ten Offensive Lineman of the Year in back-to-back seasons before going number 1 overall to the Miami Dolphins in 2008. At the time, Jake Long was just the 3rd offensive tackle in NFL history to be taken 1st overall after Orlando Pace and Ron Yary, both of them which are in the Hall of Fame. He would also sign a rookie contract of 5 years, $57 million, that would make him the highest paid offensive lineman ever at the time. The money wasn't wasted at all, as Long would make the Pro Bowl in his first 4 seasons while also being an All-Pro twice in his career. He would later play for the Rams, where back-to-back ACL tears would keep him off the field a ton. The injuries would keep getting worse as Long would move to the Falcons and then the Ravens and Vikings while not playing much at all and even getting hurt again. And after 9 seasons, Long would call it quits from the NFL. The runner-up spot will be Mario Williams out of North Carolina State in 2006. Williams in 3 seasons would set his school's all-time sack record, which wouldn't be broken until Bradley Chubb in 2017. Mario Williams would be the 2nd first overall pick for the Houston Texans in the 2000s. By year 2, he would already be a double-digit sack man and would eventually be a Pro Bowler and All-Pro. Williams was like the Texans' J.J. Watt for a bit before J.J. Watt would actually come along and be much better. Injuries would cut his time short in Houston, and after moving to outside linebacker and becoming a free agent, he would sign with the Buffalo Bills on a 6-year, $100 million contract. Williams would rattle up back-to-back double-digit sack seasons while also being an All-Pro, despite the Bills not being able to make the playoffs once while he was there. At age 31, Mario Williams will be released and signed with the Dolphins, where he'd only play 1 season before his career would be over. So with 4 Pro Bowls and 3 All-Pro selections in an 11-year career is pretty good, along with 97.5 sacks to be number 2. Number 1, to no surprise, is Eli Manning out of Ole Miss in 2004. With the Chargers having the number 1 overall pick, Manning made it clear that he would not play for the Chargers, so San Diego did themselves a favor by trading him to the New York Giants in exchange for quarterback Phillip Rivers. As the younger brother of Peyton Manning, Eli would of course be an All-American and SEC Player of the Year, along with winning a myriad of other awards in 4 seasons at Ole Miss. By year 2 with the Giants, he would already have them in the playoffs, winning the NFC East. It would be in year 4, however, where he and the Giants would shock the world. Despite being the league leader in interceptions, Eli Manning would lead the Giants to a 10-6 record and a wild card spot where they get all the way to the Super Bowl and beat the undefeated Patriots 17-14 in Super Bowl 42. Beating the Patriots was something Manning proved to be great at. Eli Manning would later win Super Bowl MVP and be a Pro Bowler the following season in 2008. Consistency would be a problem throughout the career of Eli Manning, despite being a 2-time Super Bowl champion and later being a 4-time Pro Bowler as well. Eli Manning led the NFL in interceptions 3 times in his career, despite being top 10 in passing yards and touchdowns in NFL history. Some believe that Eli Manning's inconsistency is what's going to keep him out of the Hall of Fame, but I still believe and stand by the fact that over 50,000 passing yards, 366 touchdowns, 4 Pro Bowls, 2 Super Bowls, and Super Bowl MVPs not only make him a Hall of Fame player, but the best number 1 overall pick of the 2000s. Do you agree with my ranking? Would you change anything on the ranking? Thank you for watching the video. If you liked the video, like and comment who you think is the best player who went number 1 overall in the 2000s and whether or not you agree with my ranking of the list. And if you like me, subscribe.